Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to Community Buy-In, Leveraging Community for Financial Sustainability, a session that was presented at Winter Institute 2025 in Denver, Colorado.
Welcome, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed the start of today. The keynote was absolutely fabulous. Super excited to have everybody here to this fabulous panel that we have. Our session is called Community Buy-In. I'm assuming everybody here is an indie bookstore seller or has a connection, right, to an indie bookstore. So we are already community, and when we go back, obviously, we care about the community that we have. So we are going to be looking at how to leverage our community for financial sustainability in this panel. A little bit of housekeeping that you're already familiar with. You can find all the slides, everything that's happening up here on the screen in your app, and you will be asked now and also later and after every session that you attend to do the surveys that are attached. Really important for ABA and for all of us. Recordings, of course, will be online at bookweb.org and also on Booked, which is the podcast that ABA has. Everybody, obviously, silence your cell phones, and questions, we'll do questions at the end, and we do ask that you use the mic. So please make sure that, when the time comes, that we use the mic. That was not the right way, so let's try again. Antitrust guidelines. We're not allowed to discuss price or pricing policies, boycotts, or dividing up the market. So let's not do that. Before I just give a quick rundown of the description of the session, I do want to make sure that we thank Ingram. Obviously, all of this is not possible without their support and the support of other publishers as well. So we appreciate them. So in this session here, we'll be exploring how you can leverage existing community support into financial stability, something we all care about as we are running our businesses. We are going to look at how to feel empowered to secure resources and keep your community-centric endeavors thriving, all while still balancing your mission. So this is a super important panel, actually, and we have some fabulous panelists on board that I'm very honored to be moderating, basically. So the agenda for today, we have a few points that we will be touching upon: strategies for transforming community engagement into financial stability, prioritizing and sustaining community-centered initiatives. You're going to learn so much today from what other people are doing, which is quite amazing. We're going to have some highlighted takeaways, and then we'll do the Q&A. So when we were discussing this panel and preparing for it, what we found was sort of a mantra. We're not in the community, we are of the community. So think about that. It's really, really a fantastic mantra. Short introduction, and I get the honor of introducing myself first. I am Nadia Lauer of Maybe Books. We are 10 months old, so we are still babies. We are going to be learning from some fabulous people here. We are a diverse and inclusive general interest bookstore right on the main line outside of Philadelphia. We want everybody to be able to see themselves on the bookshelves, and we hope, obviously, that everybody would feel it's a safe third place. Why don't we start with Ramanda, and then we'll go around. Please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of rundown of your store and the community you live in so we can place you.
Absolutely. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Ramunda Young, co-owner of Mahogany Books in the D.C. area, along with my amazing husband, Derek Young. We've actually been in business in April 18 years. And married 22, so that's a whole other book story going on. Proud to be married I'll be 23 years in June. But anyway, we're in the D.C. area, and our whole impetus is how do we make Black books accessible no matter where you lived. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, maybe 2 miles from Black Wall Street. Let me see by a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Black Wall Street? Wow, I see some hands that are not up, and many that are. But grew up about 2 miles from Black Wall Street and never knew it was there because it was never taught in my schools. This place of great thought, entrepreneurship, leadership, innovation was 2 miles from my home. So for me, starting Mahogany Books, if I had known about those thought leaders that were 2 miles from my house, how much taller I'd walk, how much more confident I'd be, how much more I just think I could do anything because I saw them do it. And so creating this space for us has allowed those type of Black books to be accessible when they were not accessible to me. So that's a little bit about who we are. Like I said, 18 years, the first 10 years we started online with a computer in our little 1-bedroom apartment in Alexandria, Virginia. And now we have a space in the airports, also in National Harbor, where we see about 55,000 people every year at our store that come through our door. So this is something very serious and very intentional for us. And so that's just a little snippet about 18 years of business in 45 seconds. But yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Thank you.
Artika, would you like to go?
Yes, my name is Artika Tyner. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. I would say there's something unique about our story. So I have to follow up from Ramonda. I was just going to say hello from Minnesota. But we are Minnesota's version of our Black Wall Street in the Rondo community. We are not alone. There are over 1,000 now documented cases of racial removal with the 1956 Federal Highway Interstate Act. So for us, a vibrant community, over 400 Black-owned businesses, over 700 Black-owned homes, and then here comes Interstate I-94. I would say for my story, I had a chance to sit at the feet of our community elders to talk about how business sustained us, to talk about how we created our own spaces that were responsive to our culture in meaningful ways. So fast forward to today, how am I connected to books? I'm connected in 3 ways. We own a bookstore, publishing house, and then also we have a literacy nonprofit. So we are a social enterprise that's multifaceted. I'm going to share some tips on why we made that decision as well. But I think books give life. I think books give inspiration. I think books give healing, support, everything. So I started off as that early book lover. So here I am living the dream.
Amazing.
Oh, it's me. Yep. Hey, peace, y'all. My name is Dara Landry. I'm co-owner of Class Bookstore in Houston, Texas, with my husband, David Landry. And basically, books have always been a part of our story. We got a chance to meet in a bookstore. We've always been readers. And we read a statistic in 2015 about the decline of the Black-owned bookstore. And at that time, there were like 39 Black-owned bookstores. And that made us super nervous because that meant there wasn't one in every state, at least. And so we wanted to do something about that. We remember growing up how the Black-owned bookstore was so vital for us in our community, and some of our best memories were spent at a bookstore, and it shaped us. And so we set out to do something about it. We wanted to visit all the ones that were open and talk to them and see how they were doing and support them, and then figure out how we could bring that back to Houston, because at the time when we started research, we did not have a Black-owned bookstore that was moving and shaking like that. And so we were like, what can we do about it? In 2020, we were like, this is the best year to start a business. I mean, if ever someone's going to open a business, we should do it in 2020. And then 2020 went the way it went. But we still opened up in November 2020. People weren't outside, but we started online. We would deliver to doors. We would do whatever we had to do. And then 2021, we started moving as a pop-up, and we were just where the people were. We like to constantly say we're not in the community, we're of the community. So wherever our community was showing up, that's where we were. And then in 2022, we got the opportunity to open our brick and mortar, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since with the ideal that we're the bookstore that loves streetwear. If we can make sneakers, if we can make books as dope as sneakers are for kids, then they'll want to pick them up all the time. And so that's why we dress the way we dress, curate the books the way we curate them. But we believe that knowledge deserts are real, and we're fighting it every day.
Let's go.
Such inspiring women. I'm totally blown away, I have to say. I'm so excited. So the first issue will be touching upon strategies for transforming community engagement into financial sustainability. So what strategies have worked for transforming community engagement into financial stability? And I just want to say that the slides are online. You can see the pictures from all of our stores and the different things we've been doing. Artika, would you like to start?
Well, I would say it's a multifaceted approach. I wish I could tell you one thing that works, but I can tell you something about me that is linked to our strategy. I'm a numbers person. By training, I'm an attorney, and I look at the numbers. I can tell you every comma, semicolon in the law, and I'm all over the place with details. So I would say the numbers has really been our strategy. Okay, let me just give you practical. I'm taking y'all to Rondo right now. You can come into our community. Our average income for Black households is roughly about $36,000. We have probably less than 3 to 4% of our community has reached an average annual income of $100,000. The average cost of a home in our community is $285,000. Your common sense will tell you our Black people have been displaced and things aren't working well for us. So the numbers drew us into defining our model. That's why we are a social enterprise. For many in our community, they are the beneficiaries of our work. They are not our customers. I want us to understand that because there is oftentimes a transition in knowing who your market is, knowing where your marketplace is located and how to minister to the needs. So truly, I'm known as a queen of literacy back home. I get the books into the schools and I do it kind of Robin Hood style. So I know you all had some questions like, how does she do all this? I don't know, but it happens. Because the business model for the bookstore is unique. We are not a traditional bookstore in a sense. Our brick and mortar is in a barber shop. Yes, Brother Jacob does cuts and he is a literacy expert and he's a poet and a rapper. I'm like, let's do mic check right here. So he reached out to me. I was never interested in brick and mortar because I knew our numbers would never work. And he said, what would it look like if when I open my business, we can open up together? 6 years later, here we are. Because we decided to take on the overhead, the process, and the journey together in a collaborative way. But when I say this piece about, and I'll reiterate it again, know your numbers. Because even for, I'm doing a report, next month's Women's Month, so the data shows some alarming statistics. Most women-owned businesses have an annual gross income of what? Less than $50,000. I'm sorry, my friends, that's unacceptable. That means the reality of it is I'm struggling to pay my bills. I don't have the baseline of a financial future, meaning life insurance, health insurance, and to be able to survive. I think sometimes there's a misconception between mission and money. They can go together, but you just have to figure out the strategy on how to make them come together. The absence and devoid of money and mission coming together, you are doing a disservice to yourself and your community. So I'll pause here. I can tell more, but I'll get going. But know the numbers, know your mission, align mission and numbers strategically. And the last thing I'll say related to that, be honest with yourself. Okay, so we are 8 years in, going into our 9th year. We weren't honest the first 6 years. We were just like, we love books, we love babies, we love Black people, Black power, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X. We were just on. We weren't making a dime. That doesn't help our community. We weren't creating jobs. We weren't building capacity. And more importantly, we weren't showing our community that there could be a business model of success. We were yelling Black power and we forgot that Black power is aligned with economic power. So we had to get to work and revitalize ourselves. And the last thing that I will say in knowing your business and knowing your numbers, we are not winning on B2C. Some of you may be. Your online sales, your bookstores, your book signings may be where your revenue's coming from. Ours is almost 99% B2B. And you're like, how? Oh, I'll tell you later.
Come on with the cliffhanger.
Dara, would you like to?
Oh, yeah, I am. And looking at that question, I would push back and say that you need financial stability so that you can have community engagement. I would flip them, and that's okay. We're not, and that doesn't make you money hungry. That doesn't mean that money comes first. I know in order to engage with our community that the lights have to be on at the store and the doors got to be open and the rent has to be paid. And so how do I make sure that we are financially stable so that we can engage our community in the best way? How do I make sure that we're getting the best deal on books from the publisher so that we can engage in this community situation in the best way? Financial stability is important because that is how we're going to be engaged in community. So I'm focused on it. It is not, and it is a priority. It is not my, it's not the thing that is like I wake up trying to be rich. Like I don't think anybody opened a bookstore to be rich. If you did, I would like to talk to you after about the model. But I think that we woke up with community in mind. And the thing you learn is that in order for me to do well and serve my community, you have to be here. And in order for us to be here, we have to do good business. You got to know them numbers. You got to look at that P&L. You got to look at cash flow, you get your QuickBooks, all of that. So I have to do the financial stuff so that I can be here and engage the community. I don't love it. That's not the part I'm in love with, but it's necessary. So I don't shy away from it. And we want to do it well. So
amazing. Ramonda?
Yeah, I think to your question, strategies that have worked for transforming community engagement into financial stability. We are the Black Tower, and we're all hail to Black authors and all authors. But I think for us, to both of what you both have said, it has to be hand in hand. Financial stability and being in alignment with your purpose. Because a lot of us are out here doing a lot of things that don't align with us authentically. So for us, that strategy really is looking at how do we serve that community that we're in. Yep. I could have all these books that don't really pertain to that community that I'm in, and those people will walk past my doors. So how do I really tap into what they need? How do I really tap into what they're talking about? So that has been a mechanism for us really being authentic to who they are and authentic to who we are. And just meeting our community where they are. If there's a huge literacy issue, how do I get more kids' books in our stores? But really thinking of this as a business and having those two aligned, serving, meeting them where they are, really just knowing their needs. What does that look like? Is it an art buying community? How do I have more art books on our shelves? But when you do that, the financial aspect will come because people feel like they've been seen, they've been heard, and you're not just glossing over titles that may be popular and mainstream, but not connected to them. So that's what has helped us be in business for 18 years, and this, and definitely paying attention to the numbers. I didn't want an expensive hobby. Book selling can be an expensive hobby. Payroll, inventory, marketing, social media. I didn't have time for an expensive hobby. What I did have time was for an intentional, productive, producing business that also served my community. So that's what I think those strategies are. Really knowing your community. How do you serve your community? A lot of times we think it's about us. It is not about us. It is about how do we serve those people so when they come to our doors, their needs are met. For us, we have Black books on our shelves. Probably about 99% of our authors on our shelves are written by Black authors from all over the diaspora. And so when those customers come in our store, I want them to know that. We're not shying away from that. And time after time, they tell us they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel respected. So how do you all do that in your own respective areas? What is that niche that you have? A lot of people say there's riches in the niches, right? In the niche. How do you really do that? How do you double down in your area and really serve your community? And again, when you do that, the financial aspect always is there.
Really good stuff here. So basically, an overview of what we just discussed: be intentional, be authentic, be selective, be collaborative, engage with local government, and I think maybe we can incorporate that a little bit going on, and be prepared to market and sell your business to partners, and that's something in particular you have been touching upon. The next item we'll be discussing very briefly, obviously, prioritizing and sustaining community-centered initiatives. So, friends, how do you prioritize and sustain community-centered initiatives without overextending yourself? And Steph, Dara, would you like to start?
Yeah. So, just looking at it, I would say for what has worked for us, the community is the main focus, right? And so everything we set out to do, we do with the community in mind, because just backtracking a little bit with the ideal of strategies as I'm waking up this morning and I'm like, okay, a strategy, right? Like that's a real tactic that we use. So for us, to piggyback on Ramonda, what we do is we serve our community. We make our space open for our community so that they come in and say, hey, I need Class Bookstore to be here. So I'm going to support this space because this is where I can have my open mic. This is where I can have my book signing. And so we do events for our community and we open the space up. And in return, they say, we know that Class Bookstore needs to pay the bills, so we're going to financially support it. And so our community is priority. That's what we're thinking of. We're in Third Ward, Houston, Texas. We are both children of Houston, Texas. And so anytime we're thinking of ideas of what shirt we're going to make, what books we're going to do, we're always thinking about the city. We're always thinking about our community. And that's how we curate our books. That's how we make events. I think this event will be dope because people in Houston like this, or our community is into this. And we do as much as we can to the best of our ability. David and I can sit and think of 600 shirt ideas. Can we execute 600 shirt ideas? Absolutely not. Not and still be married by the end of the year. So we're going to knock off 3, and we're going to knock them off really well. And we're going to make sure that it's something we know would serve our community. And we're going to be okay with that. I think when you're community minded, the ideas come, there's always a need, right? You always see something. You're like, we can help. We could do that. We could do this. Maybe we could have books at that. Maybe we could do that. But we really look at, can I do all of those things well, or would I just be half-assing, sorry, a bunch of things. So we try our best to say, we're going to serve this many people well. We're going to do this many indie authors because we can do that well. And we're going to be okay with that. Because we don't, if you're, exhausted, you can't pay the bills, you have no ideas, and then we have to once again shut the store down, that doesn't help anybody. So we don't overextend ourselves, because at the end of the day, we won't be here. And if we're not here, then what was the purpose?
Really good reminder. Romanda?
Yeah, so when I think of how do we prioritize community, it is our focus as well. I know when we opened up one of our locations, it's in an area that's highly, a lot of travelers come from other places, and they didn't really look like our target demographic. And I know my husband and I told do we have all these New York Times bestsellers in our stores? Do we have books that really didn't reflect our community? And we said no, even though most of the people probably coming into are looking for those books. But our community was coming, and let me backtrack. A lot of my books are not even on the New York Times bestsellers, right? A lot of Black authors are not there. So I had to make a decision about community or financial stability, right? Do I have these books that everybody's coming in looking for, or do I have the books that my community is looking for? So for us, our community is the forefront. It is how we make moves about initiatives that we partner in. We also look at values. If an organization aligns with our values, we've turned down money because the value did not align with ours. It wasn't about, let's do this big brand sponsorship and get 10,000, whatever. If it didn't align with us and our community, we didn't do it. And sometimes it's hard when you're like, oh my gosh, this 10,000 would be great if we just posted this little ad or we did this. But that community, having that as our bellwether, really determines how we move. It wasn't just the money. So for us, how do you prioritize it? It's that also making sure that we do have time to breathe and relax. I always talk about peace and ease at our store, but I won't have energy to focus on our community. I won't have energy to focus on their initiatives if I've not been fed, if I've not had my time to relax and breathe. And as entrepreneurs, it sounds like pie in the sky, breathe, go to the spa, whatever. It's like, who does that? I do. And I will always do it. Because in mind, as you were saying too, Dara, like, you can't serve from an empty cup. I don't care if you're running the marketing, the HR, we're doing probably all of that, HR, and, have consultants, but making time to really fill yourself up so you can be there for your community, so you can make decisions that really align with those initiatives and values that align with your customer base. But not chasing the dollar is the thing that really kept us in alignment. Chasing the dollar that also aligned with our values is how we sustain. So when you say, how do we prioritize that? That's how we're prioritizing that. Is it filling our cup? Is it aligning with our values? That's what we make our moves.
And that's also actually what's going to empower us and make us stronger and our stores stronger. Artika, would you like to round it up? I mean, how do you prioritize and sustain community-centered initiatives without overextending yourself and staff, and maybe touch on the government part?
Of course. I would say amen to everything that we've heard, because this is about the longevity and sustainability of vitally important work. Whether you're the Black-owned bookstore, indie bookstore, however you identify yourself, we're life givers. We're the foundation of democracy, liberty, freedom. You have to know who you are to know where you stand. So for me, I think the most important thing is, I know you are not going to expect this answer from me, but I get more no's than yeses. In fact, when the calls come in, I'm like, no. And then that way people feel better if I give a yes. No. Some people call and say, Sorrow, I need you. I'm not a Sorrow, so you got the wrong number. No, I'm just kidding. But my answer, I'm just like, no. Well, I need the Greek Society to sponsor a book drive. Okay, then we can talk. No, I cannot go to every Chamber of Commerce event. No, I can't do every pop-up. sometimes there's a lesson in no. And you can find a more diplomatic way to say it, but at this stage in my life, no is a beginning and an end to a statement, okay? But you can. I used to say it exceeds my capacity. You can practice what works for you, but the urgency of the issues. I didn't tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a civil rights attorney by training. 85% of the young people in the juvenile justice system cannot read. 60 to 80% of adults. Nearly all of my clients couldn't spell justice or indictment and had no understanding. And there's one client that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life that has a life sentence without parole and learn how to read late into the sentence. Literally, I was like, our lives parallel. We're around the same age. What was so different? What happened? And I think what happened was we didn't have the opportunity to invest in the well-being of community and that individual earlier. So I got a sense of urgency. I don't know what your sense of urgency is, but I know what mine is. So my no is my beginning and my end. And how do I ensure that I don't overextend myself? I make sure finally, my team was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Can you write it down? I was like, fine, get a pen and you all type whatever you do. Here are our community partners. They're like, you had that Rolodex in your mind? Yes. I get on the phone. They're like, you're at 106. Slow down. Why is that important? Because the things that don't align with your mission, your resources and talents, refer it to somebody else. It could be a new business deal coming your way. Refer it to somebody else if it doesn't fit. My grandfather told me early on in business, all money's not good money. So a lot of money I got to let go. But I know how to get it to the right person to get back to our community in Rondo and still have an impact. I can't really answer overextending myself and my staff. You're basically looking at my staff. You know, for the nonprofit, we're 2.5 FTE. For the bookstore, we're myself and Jacob. For the publishing company, you're looking at me. So I say all that to say, you're still like, well, who's behind you? Fiverr. I'm a good partner with Fiverr because then I have all my contractors that do different things from marketing to ads. I also, have consultants to do HR, all that different stuff. And here's a little lesson. You can probably do all these things well, but you can't. Have somebody else do it so you can focus on where you can have the greatest impact. Yeah. But my greatest employee is AI. I wake up, say, girl, let's go. And we have conversations. Like today, I was working on a book. I was like, the ATOS is too high. It needs to be 1.9 or less. And I was, attorney in me, I was like 10 words in. And I was like, oh, I had to say with shelves up. Oh, good business. So also, I think AI has gotten a bad reputation. It depends on how you use it. It depends on what it can do. So AI has helped me set up systems. And if you don't believe me, the social justice side as an attorney, I'm about to use AI. 80% of the civil needs, it's not constitutionally protected. Criminal needs are, by the way. And that's if it's based on income. That's a whole nother legal story. But 80% of the civil needs, the day-to-day civil needs, housing, access to Medicaid, all those things are unmet because people can't find an attorney and can't afford one. Me and AI are about to hook up and we are about to create models to help people do their own pro bono services. So don't throw AI out because it's gotten a bad reputation. A part of it was, and I'm going to say it in a vernacular, some people were trifling, just using AI to replace their intellect and their work. Do not use AI like that. Use AI as a tool for efficiency and proficiency around the matter. So AI is my number one employee. I use multiple versions of it and we are excelling.
All right.
Very good. All right. That is inspiring, all three of you. So, general overview of what we just discussed, assuming that they said the same things when we did the slide.
We should be able to look at the slides. You should switch.
I need a cheat code.
Yeah, this has been super interesting. Start where you are. Does this serve our community and our mission? Say no. I think we heard about that enough. No? Yeah. Say yes also to what you can do well. And we also heard about that. That was really as important. Build sustainability into your business model and redefine your metrics for success. It's not always a sale, which was really interesting. And let it rest. Chill out. Takeaways. All right. So for everyone here, what are the 3 things you'd want them to learn? And I feel Maybe we should start with one thing each, and then we'll see if we have time to do 3 things each.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is the one thing you want?
The one thing that I would say that I want you to take away from this, and community work is a genuine work. It has to be in you and not on you. You have to be community minded. You cannot fake that. It cannot be a sales tactic. It cannot be a trend. You just have to be a community minded person. And if you are not a community minded person, that is okay. Like if it doesn't come natural to you, your bookstore is the bestseller bookstore or whatever the case may be, and that's not your thing, that's cool. Don't try to fake it. Find a community-minded person on your team. Find the person on your team that's like, I have a heart for community, and then marry that into your business model. But to be community-minded, I wake up with this work on my mind every day. Mm-hmm. I opened a bookstore because I was thinking of my community. It had very little to do with me. We would have been venture capitalists, or we'd have figured out something rich to do if it was just us, I promise. But I am community minded in my heart and my soul. I love my city. I put it on my back everywhere I go. And so it's down in my bones. And if it's not your thing, that's okay. But find somebody for your team, who it is, and help them come in and diversify. Now that's a wild word nowadays. Diversify your team and get a community minded person, and watch and marry that to what you're doing, and watch your business model excel. So it got to be in you and not on you. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, and I would add too, collaboration. When I think of community, it's not a solo project. A lot of us may be in our little bookstores in our own little thing. We wake up, we do our thing in our store, and that's it. But how do you collaborate? How do you reach out to that community? How do you partner with your libraries? How do you partner with the local nonprofits? How do you all go together? Yeah. When your bookstore is out there thriving and reaching out to all these different parts of your community, then we all win. It's not a solo project. And you guys are in books, you know that. But being very intentional with the reach out, with the people you partner with who you collaborate with, so we can all, is it a children's organization? Is it a prison organization? How do you reach out so that community goes with you and your bookstore, and not just be this little solo project, this solo island? Every day you're doing your own little midnight release parties and all this, and that's great. But how do you bring that community with you and be very intentional with that? So that's the takeaway that I want you to have. Think of 5 partners that you have not partnered with yet. And how do you reach out to them in an authentic way and a mutually beneficial way, not just your bookstore succeeding, but a mutually beneficial way, and then come up with something that really is accessible and celebrated in your community. Think about those 5 people, those 5 groups.
For me, I would say it again, know your numbers, know what that means, and not just before I focus on the financial piece, but know your numbers and what you seek to impact. And I brought some extra copies with me as well. This is our first time doing this, but it's long overdue. We did a community impact report. That way the community could see this is what we achieved together. Through a visual 1-pager, it was like, this is what we did. These are the books we produce. This is how many children we reach. This is how many schools. So then the community could see their victory. And the other piece related to community is we do an annual summit with our community, informally, no big thing. Don't worry. It's informal. But we check in with them and we ask, like, did we do what you wanted to see? Did it make sense? What do you want to see more of? Because at first we jumped in was like literacy. 18% of our children that look like us are proficient in reading in our community. I was like, what? Department of Justice said the greatest indicator of future incarceration is reading failure. We have a problem. So we jumped in on literacy. But then one of the kids, and the young people especially always call you out, have youth advisory members. Young people are like, well, what about us? And I was like, what about you? Y'all struggling with literacy. Let me focus on that. Keep quiet. But one young man was like, but I write books. That's how we ended up publishing Young People, because they had stories to share. So if you check in with community, you'll know exactly what they need. But you need an infrastructure related to that, a constant feedback loop, because that will go into know your numbers and know your audience. That's the first thing they teach us as lawyers, know your audience. So I left y'all with that cliffhanger. How in the world does she do B2B? Who did I start with? The law firms. I'm like, I used to work for y'all. Come on. Sponsor these book events in the community. Come on, get the legal books through us. Come on, help us out. But you have to, my audience and your audience are remarkably different. So I knew my audience was government and lawyers because that's my career. That's where I came from. So I went to them and said, make this model work with me. And you make it look good for them. If you follow us on social media, I salute them. I was like, law firm XYZ did ABC for us. And then it got to be a sweet deal. I was like, in addition to buying all your books, we want the bulk orders. Let us be your catalyst for community impact. They were like, huh? I was like, just write the check. We got you. So know your audience on how you navigate things, because basically yours truly is the face of community impact and pro bono services for most of the law firms in my state.
Nice.
B2B.
Amazing. All right. I think those are good ones. Know your audience by researching your customer. Know your numbers. Be clear about your mission. Peace and ease for longevity. Budget and plan to establish financial success. You deserve to make money.
Say that again.
Yeah.
That's a takeaway.
Say that again.
That's a takeaway. You deserve to make money. Absolutely. People think when you get into book selling, it's like, ew, money. You deserve to make money. Absolutely. You can do community work and make money. It does not run you. It does not rule your life. You deserve to make money.
It takes money to pay payroll, buy inventory.
To build out a community, to hire people from your community to work for you so they can feed their families. You deserve to make money. Never compromise that. You're not a bad person.
Yeah, always remember yourself 100%. So as we move on to the Q&A session, we do need to talk into the microphone that would be available. And just a reminder to please evaluate this session and all the other sessions, but obviously this session. So let us know who has a question, and you can go either raise your hand. All right, it's already happening.
So I struggle. I ask myself every day, who is in my community? We struggle with a large homeless population. I clean up needles and human waste every day. Mm-hmm. So they are my community, right? They're there. I don't have a channel to serve them. I'm assuming a lot of us who have bookstores in the cities have problems with, I don't want to say problems with the houseless, but problems with our relationship with them, I guess. And I'm really struggling with how to resolve that.
I'd like to answer, and other people too. I think DC has a huge unhoused population as well, but I think this is really where partnership does come into play. I'm not a social services organization, but I can reach out to a social services organization. I can reach out to an organization that gives out blankets when it's cold. And your store can be that hub. No, they may not have the discretionary income to come into your store, but how can your store also have some of those spaces where you can align with those partners? I'm not saying turn your whole store into a warming station or whatever, even though your community may need it. So you have to look at both, right? How do you partner with people and sometimes bring them in, but also realize, okay, if my community is this population, how do I serve them? Is it maybe I can't serve them? To be honest, maybe I can't. And this part, there's other people in your community. I'm sure it's not 100%. I'm saying, I don't know, 100% unhoused. So there are other people there who have needs. But I think for me, it's just partnering with organizations that still address some of the needs that are in your community, and your community come to know you for that. Oh, wow, so-and-so bookstore has blankets on Tuesdays, or so-and-so is partnered with our local food shelter on Thursdays. And maybe it's not inside of your store. Maybe it's out front. How do you get creative and still serve that population? But to be honest, if there's not, it takes $1 to buy a book. And so if that community doesn't have $1, how do you serve them in different ways, but still also heed the needs of everybody else in your community? So it's definitely a delicate dance. I won't lie. I'm like, just, give them a book all day. It's a delicate dance because you have lights to pay. You have inventory. You have to pay Ingram. Thank you, Ingram, our sponsor. So it's a delicate dance, this work that we do. So I think it's also leveraging the people around you and help them partner with you.
I would also like to add to that really quickly. So our business, our bookstore sits in a really sweet spot where we're basically on the campus of a historically Black university. Across the street is George Floyd's High School, and catty corner to that is one of Houston's largest housing projects. We have kids. We had this thing where kids from the projects was constantly coming in our store like, what's this? What's going on? What y'all got? Let me pick this book up. And we love, they're our community, right? So we started putting Capri Suns and animal crackers in the refrigerator. And if they wanted to have a snack, they'd have to sit down and read a book. Are they going to buy that book? Absolutely not. But I began to tell customers, because sometimes your community is not your customer and your customer might not be of your immediate community. Yeah. I began to tell our customers about what we were doing. And then our customers began to show up with Capri Suns and animal crackers to refill for the community because they loved what we were doing. And they were buying books going, man, class is really helpful within that community. And I know that community cannot always buy the book. So I'm going to buy 2 books. And this book is for when the kids come in and read. Absolutely. And so then our community project became this thing that our customers could become a part of. And they were like, how can we help serve this community as well through Class Bookstore? So we never looked at folks who could not afford books as a problem per se for us. It was just, that's our community and how can we serve them? And sometimes that, it won't be reciprocal. I think you have to realize your community won't always love you back the way in which you're loving it. And you got to be okay with that relationship, that you might be on the more giving end of that. But you have customers who see what you're doing. I'm not saying you should exploit it and put it all over your IG, but I am saying you should be honest and talk to people about what you do and what your bookstore is doing for your community, and watch them partner with you and say, let me help you. Let me buy some snacks.
And what's also important to remember, just before we take the question, is that other people, your customers, your clients, your community, or extended community, they want to find ways to help.
Absolutely.
Which you are enabling and facilitating.
Absolutely.
I want to weigh in on this issue, though, to go back to the homelessness question. I agree with everything that I heard, but I have to give you another layer and dimension of this issue from the lawyer working on a number of security issues. There are some security challenges related to your approach, so I want to make sure you have that well thought out. Because in Minnesota, for instance, we're number 3 in the nation, I believe, with the highest rate of an opioid crisis. We have violence every day surrounding our libraries and our bookstore that I have to be mindful of. We are a children's bookstore. I have to keep the children safe because there's one brother I had to already deal with a month ago. Everybody's like, Doc, you stood up. I was like, hey, my security wasn't paying attention, but I'm right here. And I saw him how to do the redirect. I gave him the book, gave him something to eat. That's cool. But I think you have to be mindful of security issues too. And with the situation you're characterizing, it sounds a little different in the sense that it sounds like a failure from your city and with some of the partnership resources, because there's also a safety issue with some of these things. On the sidebar, my team will be within the next few weeks. Everybody volunteers. We're doing a CPR and Narcan training. We are having some real issues that I'm not going to take lightly that we have to be aware of. We have security plans now to keep us and the children safe. So I agree with it. I'll get a blanket. I do all the things everybody's talking about, but you are not, in light of what I do and the nature of my work as an attorney, you are not going to mitigate the safety of me and my babies, me and the children who use our bookstore for any reason beyond outside of my control. So I'm asking you all to please be proactive. And can I give a quick example on it? Do you mind?
You really don't have to.
A very quick one.
A very quick one, because I think it's very important.
Yes.
Quick reminder on this. I was at a library and the librarian was looking like, what does she do now? That's usually the look I get. But I was like, what did I do to this woman? I don't even know her. And so I asked her, I said, are you okay? Did I do some offense? If I did, I apologize. She said, no, I'm just in pain. She picked up a $1 bill that was laced with fentanyl. And then she thought the best way was to clean her hands. So she put on, I'm not a chemist, she put on rubbing alcohol. On top of that, she has permanent nerve damage. Please be wise and use some common sense.
Yeah, I do that.
More questions?
Quick question. I'm Riley from Stonecrest Book and Toy in Central Missouri. I'm struggling with our community right now in that trying to, right now, we carry queer, BIPOC authors, and like our Google reviews is just filled with hate. And I'm sorry, I don't want to cry.
It's okay. Take your time.
Oh, goodness. Okay. But like, I am the community-minded person. And so being so passionate, obviously, I'm a poet. This is just what I do. It's okay. Being so passionate about my community and wanting to provide literacy, but it's so nuanced. I mean, I want to provide what the people read, but I am not going to fill the store with hate. I'm not going to do that. I just refuse. And like, because of that, because we used to be a chain that carried a lot of that stuff and we've transitioned into being independent, we've seen a severe decline in business because we just won't carry what they want. And we do carry everything. That's the thing though, is we do carry what they want, but not enough of what they want. And our whole store's model isn't what they want. And so I'm really struggling with how do we stay in business, but how do we help the community also and there are members of our community, that come in and support us, but it's just not enough. We're in a town of 3,000 people.
All right, so let's answer the question, and it might be related to location at this point in time, and I think many of us are going to be dealing with something like that, and I'm very, very sorry that all of us are going to be dealing with this. Who would like to take a jab at this?
Yeah, I'm processing.
I was like, I want to be helpful.
Yeah,
I want to be helpful. And I don't know. My heart goes out to you. I hear you. You are seen. It can be very hard when your community is not, and I like, let's be mindful about the word. Sometimes location and community are not the same thing, right? Like that might your location is one thing, but that's not your community, right? Like, and really leaning into where you're finding your community. And when I say community, like your people, like I know the type of bookstore. When David and I set out to open our bookstore, we were like, we are passionate about this nonfiction niche. Everybody in the industry, y'all probably like nonfiction, except my girl, Miss Janet. It was like, right. I was like, I sell nonfiction. People in the industry were like, no. And I was like, my community is going to be people who come in and are like, I'm here for that heat. I'm here for that knowledge. And I'm fighting for them. Now, my location is where I can afford. And my community has to come to me or things like that. So I don't want you to be dismayed by your location and understanding your community. There is another piece to this, knowing your town and your business and your metrics. You do have to sell what people want to read, right, to make your numbers. Like I could highly curate my store to things that made me happy. David wanted a theater section for many, many years because he has 2 degrees in theater and wasn't nobody buying that. And I was like, babe, it's not working, So there is a selling point to what you're talking about. But I do think the main takeaway I would give you is that finding your community and really being like, I need y'all to amp up the support. Like, because we're going to die. If you think this is valuable, I need you to amp up the support. And it's okay to ask people to do more.
Yeah, I agree. To the location piece and finding your community. It may take some extra effort. They may not be geographically right by you, but are there colleges that you can partner with and have them come in at special nights? Are there organizations that are close by? Again, this thing of partnership and community is bigger than us. And the flip side is, I sell Black books. There are people who do not want to, there's a whole movement about, books. So there is a community that's not shopping in my store. And I'm okay with not serving that customer who's not checking for me, right? Yep. Everybody's not going to come in my store and be like, oh, I'm excited about Black books. So I think having a space to be okay with that. But also because I heard I'm listening to what you said, like the financial piece, like we're here, we're in the space and the money ain't coming in the way we need it to be. And so I think there's some other things that you have to think about from a business perspective, a real hard look. If it's not there, maybe there's some different decisions you have to make. I'm not saying pick up everything and move, but maybe you need to pick up everything and move. I don't know that. There's you have a whole lot of layers to consider with that. But how do do you reach out to those other people? Are there different mixes where you can still stay authentic to you, but also still be relevant to those people around you? Because it's a balance. I don't want to just do everything that they want to do. I want to do what's authentic to me and authentic to that community. But if they're not coming through your doors, how do you get them to come through your doors? Because it sounds like you have great things on the shelves, but maybe people don't know.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? How can people be ambassadors for your store? You don't have to serve every single person. You just need to serve a good amount that can come in.
Yeah.
So I would just really be intentional about who can you partner with, and not saying you haven't, but think harder. Think harder. Who are those people can be ambassadors for your store? And if you really have to take a hard look, maybe that community and that location. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say move. Don't call me and say I told you to move. But just think about it. My heart goes out to you. I heard all of that you were saying, because it is hard book selling. Sometimes when you're like, I have this great display that's going to speak to this community, and people don't look at that display, and people are not checking for those books. And so our hearts are on our sleeves in a lot of ways. This is the work that we're in. We really believe in the words that are on the pages, but that business side kicks in sometime too. So anyway, I'm going to give you a hug. What color is your lanyard? Green. Okay. Green means hugs.
It's a hug lanyard. She's got a hug lanyard.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I just want to add before we move on to the next question, maybe you want to also find a community partner that, shares your cause and your mission, and they could be or some kind of a leeway. 100% what they both said. I agree with that. I also think that safety definitely is a concern right now in this. So you have to think about that.
Sounds real.
Absolutely.
So why did you, what they said, right? Why did you move to that location, and is it serving you, and can the community pull through with this for you? And the rest of us also who are experiencing similar things. Who else do we have?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Gottberg from Rediscovered Books in Boise, Idaho. We have recently made the news for some really unpleasant things that happened at a community meeting. So community partnerships are really important to us, but I've got a little bit more of a nuts and bolts question. What are any of you looking at or thinking about building a nonprofit arm to kind of allow you or give you latitude to do more of your community outreach? Or do you take care of that by partnering with other organizations who have nonprofit arms?
Currently, we partner with other nonprofits. I have worked in the nonprofit sector in my daytime job for 17 years in development. And the one thing I always say is we don't need another nonprofit, is more than enough. So currently we partner with nonprofits, and it has worked for us, but we are in the process of building out our own nonprofit because it is a good idea, as much as that disdain in my heart for it. So it's a yes and. If you can find great nonprofits and get the work done and do it that way, there's many. Sometimes we start with, I'm gonna just build a nonprofit, and there are really already 3 that you could partner with, and probably they could do a lot of the heavy lifting, and you don't have to worry about the tax work of it. But if you've exerted all the partnerships and you're like, for what I need to do, I need to create my own nonprofit, I think it's okay for bookstores to be open to that as well. Just make sure you get your paperwork right.
Yeah. And we partner. I know you have a nonprofit, but we do partner. We partner with our libraries, with prison organizations, literacy organizations. Like you said, there are a lot of them out there already. So for us, it's just been great to mirror and to work with them in their efforts. We have a huge following, so to be able to have their infrastructure, their executive director leadership, their all those things that we can partner with. That's what we've done so far. We've toyed with the idea of a nonprofit maybe one day, but not right now. That's not our calling at this present time.
Atika, any comment?
No, I think they covered it well. You just have to be careful that it doesn't exceed the capacity. You're hearing capacity and managing that. Yes, we have a nonprofit, but if I looked at our time, it takes a majority of their time. Can you imagine $50,000, $10,000 grant reports? That's our life. So think about maybe how you build the partnerships, like what you heard, fiscal sponsors, other partnerships with other nonprofits. You still can backdoor, indoor, and still have the same impact. You need strategy.
Yeah.
More questions?
Yeah, I'm Warren Lee, 44th and 3rd Bookseller, Atlanta, Georgia. My question is, we're in a creative community. We're near a Atlanta University Center, so we have students. We're in a very creative city. we have a lot of people coming to us with self-published books. And they want bookshelf, they want shelf space. So I wanted to ask your process for working with self-published authors.
I love this question. Well, I'll tell you this. In the beginning, we were doing consignment agreements. I'll just be honest. We were like, taking everybody who walked in our doors. Here's a consignment agreement and da-da-da-da-da. And when I looked at the paper, I'm a huge operations person and process. So when I started looking at, okay, we're taking all this time to keep up with how many books sold. And did I call this author back? Did I pay him a check? They sold 2 books. Then I'm fielding phone calls. I said, hell to the no, right? I just couldn't. And just from an operations standpoint, and it's hard because you see all these people coming in, especially us as a Black bookstore, all these Black writers coming in. Oh, you're here. We've been waiting for you. But from a process standpoint, right now on our website, you can go down. There's a link on mahoganybooks.com called Author Relations. And for us, we've trained our team. When people come in with a book, we do not accept. This is us. I'm just telling you our story. Everybody's different. But we don't accept any books that walk in off the street for us. When I looked at, when we did, I had amassed a whole collection of these books from self-published authors on our back shelf that we couldn't sell. And I love the self-published community. I mean, it's huge to us. But we had to have a process in place. So we have a form on our website. People can go and submit something. If they want to have an event in our store, click this option, because some people may live in Houston and not in DC, so they're not, the people who want to have an event, click this link. If they just want their book on their shelves, click this link. And we have them ask questions, but we weren't fielding that. So now when people come in, even on our business card, it says, because that's a question we get all the time, but on our business card for our store, it has go to this link. So for just training our team that we're not handling that in store for a lot of different reasons. I could take up all my time talking to every single person, but then I wouldn't talk to the person who's actually there to buy a book. And so for us, that has worked. When they call, they know to go to our site to do it. So for us, just from a process standpoint, now we have I'll be honest, there's about 2,000 of those authors in our queue right now. But what we do, I know it's a whole other thing, but what it also allows us to do, when we have different events, we feature independent authors all year long throughout, we have a whole series called the Independ series. So we promote them, we have them, we go to that list that they've submitted and host them at our Black Books Festival, our monthly events. And so we tell them, if you want to have an event for us, then with us, and go fill out that paperwork. But it's hard, but it took some transition. Even now, they'll try to leave a book on the shelf, or they'll mail us copies we never asked for. It's just hard because we do want their books on our shelves. It just had to be in a manageable way, and just walking in all the time was not helpful for us. But that link, that business card, allowed them to feel like they were being heard as well. And we also, this last little thing I put in there too, that was important, because they would go to the link and fill it out and say, oh, I hadn't heard from you in 2 weeks. The caveat we put in there is, if you don't hear, it didn't say don't call us, maybe it did, but it said we would reach out to you if we decide to carry your book. And that alleviated so many phone calls. Oh, I submitted my book, or by then we will reach out to you if we choose to move forward with your book. So that helped us. And so everybody may have their own little thing, but 18 years, I don't get a lot of those walk-ins anymore.
I think that Ramunda said the most important part. I will give you a strategy that I've seen another bookstore in our city. Shout out to Kindred Stories. I think they've done it well. What you can do is keep a spreadsheet of indie authors, take their information, take their email, and then quarterly they have a indie book fair, and they have an event, and they let indie authors come set up in their space or in the front of their space. They do all their own sales. They have all their own events. They'll plug it on their page. The indie author plugs it. Because a lot of times independent authors are just kind of like, I just want to see my book on the shelf, or they just want to have a relationship with you. So this is a way that it won't feel like, no, we hate you, go away, we're trying blah, 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 and all that stuff they be saying about us on Threads. But you can say, every quarterly they do a indie book fair, and I sell my book at that. And then you see how well it goes, and then you can kind of source it. And maybe from that you say, hey, whoever's the top selling that day, I'll take 3 copies of it from you. And you can fill it that way while still building community, but low, it's not on the shelf and just sitting and not doing that. So that's a strategy.
And I want to add too.
I do think we need to.
Oh, I get excited. Okay.
Yeah, we are getting, by the way, the ending, we're still getting community while not having all those extra books that are not selling. Fantastic. Today was fabulous. I want you all to, hopefully you took away a ton of information. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and enjoy Winter Institute.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!